What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Barefoot Garage. Today we're diving into all the sensors and the remaining parts that need to be mounted before we can finish our EFI conversion. All right, here's the parts we're going to focus on today. The TPS, the air intake temp sensor, the cylinder head, modified GM coolant temp sensor. Basically, that's going to be the thermostat sensor for this. And our wasted spark coil. These are the things we need to get mounted. Now let's take a look at the engine and kind of see where each one's going to go, and I'll show you a couple other things we need to do. Okay, this is the engine in kind of a mock-up state. I have the throttle body or throttle valve in here, and I have the airbox in here. Yes, I'm reusing the stock airbox. No, I don't want to go to independent throttle bodies right now. And no, I don't want to do a pod filter. I want it to pretty much appear as stock as I can. So our first part is going to be our TPS. And one of the reasons I put it together like this is I wanted to see if our TPS is going to clear what we needed to clear. So the TPS is going to mount like this. The throttle operate, that's going to be perfect. I wanted to make sure that there was clearance up here. There's plenty. And I'm going to need to make an adapter plate from here to here. Now, I found some 3D printed ones for other Bosch, I believe some K Jetronic stuff that adapt this. But after measuring the ear mounting on here and the ear mounting on here, I can find some that match this, but not this. And I kind of like this. It's very compact. It's a 3-wire, which is what I'm planning to run. And so what I'm going to do is take the sensor, go ahead and put it on there, use my handy dandy Chinese calipers, and measure how much gap I need to make up. So if I look at this, it is right about 0.42 of an inch. So I think I'm going to take a piece of 1/2 inch aluminum plate, just a little tiny piece. I'm going to drill a hole in the center, drill 2 holes, and drill through and a belt bolted here. And then I'll probably tap and drill and tap it for this to attach to it. So I'll probably cut it down to a nice shape, but for now I'll just start with a kind of a big block of this. I'll probably go grab some metal for that next week. So we're not going to get that attached tonight, but we have a plan. All right. Our next sensor is our air intake temperature sensor. This helps kind of look at air temperature and give us an idea of how much air is coming into the engine. So between the throttle position and this, it's going to give us some of that information. So the air path comes in through this. The panel filter is right here, around and down. Now, I've not done a ton of research into this, so if you know better than what I'm about to say, please tell me. I want to put it pre-filter. So I'm thinking about putting it right down here. I realize you guys can't see that. I'm going to probably put it right down here. I bought a simple weld-in bung off eBay. I'll hole saw that, I'll weld it in, I'll paint it black. Once the sensor is threaded in, from the top, you honestly almost won't see it. So not that I'm hiding what we're doing because there's no distributor, so it's pretty obvious, but I like to get this down here versus just sticking it in the side or anything like that. So that is the plan for the air intake temperature sensor. All right, now that we've taken a look at those two, let's talk about some of the things that are in the plenum. Everywhere you see tape is a hole. This is our biggest one. This is where the cold start enrichment injector went. My plan is to just build a little aluminum plate, bolt that down, and seal it up that way. Super easy. This is where there was an intake air temperature sensor, and it's too small of a thread for what I'm looking for. So I will either get a bolt or get a pipe plug or get something to put in there. Couple of vacuum ports down here and down here. Now, one of these is going to have to be used with the stepper motor for the idle control. That's one of the parts I don't have yet. I don't totally understand how I'm going to set that up, but I've got some leads and I've got a little bit of information. So probably these are going to just get plugged. This one, in all likelihood, is going to be for the stepper motor for the idle control. So plug it, plug it, plug it, plug it, and then the plenum will be in good shape. All right, next thing to talk about is the modified coolant temp sensor cylinder head temp sensor that we're going to be using. So super easy product. You just bolt it on and plug it in, and then it gives you the calibration tables. One of the coolest pieces from the Dubshop. Honestly, I found this piece. I go, man, I could put a fuel injection kit together without having to create all these values for oil temp or cylinder head temp. And I'm like, this just really kicked me in the right direction and said, I can use this with something pretty standard. So they just want you to bolt it on the number 3 cylinder 10 head bolt. which is right there. So super easy. You can see I don't have the cheese head bolts. Sorry. These are stainless 10 mils. I can zip them out super easy. They are far superior, but I'm not a purist. So that'll just bolt right there and come up. I probably won't bolt it on yet in case the plenums need to come off or the intakes need to come off or anything. So that's it. Zip it out, zip it in, and you're done. All right, so our last part to talk about here is our wasted spark coil. So this is where the stock coil lived. It kind of went this way and bolted down to these two holes. You can tell that my tin has been repaired. I have no idea why you would have cut this open or if it was damaged. I don't know. But it's got a plate here riveted down. It actually was done pretty well. It doesn't quite meet right there, but that's fine. So I'm gonna put the coil right here. I don't know if I'll go this way or this way, but we're gonna probably put it right here. And honestly, I'm probably just gonna drill straight through and put some rib nuts in. The guys at the Dubshop said no issues with vibration. It shouldn't be a problem I don't need to rubber isolate it or anything. So I will probably, if I can, catch one of these holes or none of these holes and see what we can do. So I'll probably just rib nut that in place, bolt it down, and call it a day. All right, so that's an overview of things we need to get on the engine. I think we're gonna start with that cold start injector block off plate. I got a little piece of aluminum. I'll show you guys how I put that together. We'll start cutting that and then we'll probably go into the air intake temperature sensor next. We're gonna save the TPS and then maybe we'll tackle the coil last. All right, so if you're familiar with the 914 or the D-Jet system, this is where the AAR, that auxiliary air regulator, goes, and it's just a little heat controlled spring that allows extra air into the engine, which comes to your cold start injector via this cool little adapter. The best thing is this little adapter has the correct pattern for us to make what we need. So I took this little adapter, I put it on my piece of aluminum here, traced it. We're gonna cut that out, drill 2 holes. It is 1/8 inch thick, which I'll be honest, with some RTV, I'm sure that's plenty thick. So we're gonna go ahead and cut this out and then see about putting it on the engine. All right, that went pretty easy. Looks pretty awesome, and I'm pretty sure that's gonna seal fine. There's really not a ton of pressure here unless we get a turbo. So I'm gonna just splash a little black paint on there, cover it up with some sealant, stick it on there, and call it a day. Let's move on to the next part. All right, up next, we're gonna put in this weld-in bung for our temperature sensor. So there's a little bit of a raised area here on the inside. I'm not really worried about that. It's steel, I can fill it. But I'm going to try and put it as close to this corner as I can because that air is going to come through. I think it's going to give me a pretty good temperature reading. I don't know how much this is going to be affected by being kind of down low to the engine versus being like out here. But I really do want it in the air box. I want it pre-filter. So we're going to try to get that right there. I'm going to use my calipers and see what it measures. And I'm pretty close with this 7/8 drill bit or hole saw. So we're gonna hole saw that out, clean it up real good, make sure it's the right size, burn that in place, paint it black, and hit the track. And that's it. Welding's pretty good over on this side. Yeah, I had a couple of little pinholes here, but honestly, this is pre-filter. So if it leaks a little air, this is not checking the meter of how much air. It's just a temperature reading. So I'll let this cool down, hit it with a lick of paint, and we'll throw that sensor in and it'll be back on the car. Now we can't put this in before we put it in the car because I don't have the car high enough for that. So it'll wait to go in till we're done. So I'll probably put the sensor in when we get a little bit closer, but super easy. Good penetration on the inside. Make sure you clean all that debris out and you're ready to roll. Super easy job. I would say absolute max 30 minutes for somebody if you're paying a welder to do this job, but you may be able to get like a bulkhead style where you don't have to weld it, but I like welding, so I did. All right, so that's everything that needs to go on the engine, but there's one more sensor that we're gonna be using. Now, I don't totally understand if it's required or not, but I do want to run an O2 sensor. I already have one installed on the car. It's been on the car for a while, and it gave me a lot of information to tell me that the D-Jet functions like a light switch. It was either 8-to-1 or 22-to-1. There was really no in between. So let's take a look at my exhaust, and I'll explain to you guys what I'm talking about. All right, so other than, does that thing have a V8 or what kind of car is that? The most common question I get about my car is about the exhaust. This is 100% scratch built. I built this completely custom because I didn't want to buy something off the shelf. I probably have maybe $200 in this, and I think it sounds awesome. It's tunable. It's very lightweight. It's easy to add on and off to the car. And so here's what I've got. These are merge collectors, just a mild steel merge collector that I got from Summit or Jegs, I really don't remember. These flanges came off a very rusty exhaust system that I got with the parts car, that 73 2-liter. And you can see I've welded this bolt and I've got loose bolts on the other side for the collector. Now, when I first built this exhaust, there was no crossover tube. I just had my 2 stainless steel megaphones and the 2 mufflers, because yes, it does have mufflers and they are tunable disc mufflers. And I'll show you what I'm talking about here. Down inside, you guys can't see that super well. Each end, there is a Super Trap disc muffler. I've used them in motorcycles and other things like that. And from the outside, you can tell that that's where the heat line is on the exhaust system. So I took these exhaust megaphones. They were like 20 bucks. I basically measured the OD of this collector, cut this down, slid it on, and welded it in place. And then I had this inside with a pinch bolt or a little tack, and so that it slid on there as well. So exhaust comes in, the muffler is here and here, provides enough back pressure to give me some crossover. So I had some folks recommend to me that I get a crossover tube. I really didn't know if it would make a difference, but it makes a good place for an oxygen sensor. So I do have a full oxygen sensor here. This came with that Innovate LC1 kit that I got and that I have installed in the car. Gives a great place for this boss. Now, I'm not gonna say that's the perfect place to sample it because I've got 2 different banks, and if I really wanted to be super trick, I could get a dual wideband sensor there. But this is hole sawed through pre-muffler, so the muffler's here and here. So I do think that there's some cross flow, and it did change the sound of the exhaust a little bit. But that's the other sensor that is already installed in the car and that we're going to be using and outputting a 0 to 5 to the Haltech in order to give us a little more tuning capability. All right, now that we've taken a look at all the sensors and everything that goes into this engine, let me know what I missed. If there's a sensor you think we need or that I don't have or that I haven't talked about, please leave me a comment and let me know what you think and what I am missing. I think I have a pretty good idea. I've looked at a lot of research on this and I think I've got everything in place. But the good news is, off camera, I got the engine back in. I got some nice insulation on the firewall. I know it's not OEM, it's a Dynamat hood liner, so it's like 3/4 of an inch thick, and I think it's going to help a ton. So you can see I got the coil mounted. I finally found some riv nuts, or got some new riv nuts. I got a connector right here on the crank trigger, so I could do that while it was out of the car. And I just had the airbox temporarily sitting in place. So fuel system is connected again, no more dripping fuel. And now we got to tackle the throttle position sensor. I've got a piece of aluminum coming in for that, and then it's going to be mount the computer and start that wiring process. So let us know if I'm missing anything or if you have a suggestion about what we're putting together here. I'm looking forward to putting all these sensors and everything plugging in and telling the computer how to fire it up. The fuel injection is going to be a huge upgrade over the injection. We're going to add that E to the EFI for our project. So stay tuned to the Barefoot Garage between episodes at Barefoot Garage Jacks. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel. YouTube tells me most of you that watch my videos are not subscribed. If you like 914s or you like cool projects, click on that button and let me know that you're watching and you want to see more of this project. See you guys.